Tom Verducci of Sports Illustrated, great baseball writer, joins us now. Tom had a busy day yesterday. So what was your reaction when you heard the penalty against Braun, Tom?
Dan, I thought it was a historic day for a couple of reasons. Number one, the statement from Michael Weiner, the head of the Players Association, really virtually standing up and applauding a player getting thrown out of the game for 65 games. That wouldn't have happened, obviously, 10 years ago. I don't think it would have happened even 1 year ago. I think that's how much the Players Association stance has shifted in terms of, formerly protecting cheaters to now making sure that they protect the clean players. And the other significance is that Ryan Braun was treated as a multiple offender without a positive drug test. Yeah. And we all know he had the elevated synthetic testosterone in the 2011 test, but that was not recorded as one because he won his appeal. It's very interesting to see in that statement released on the suspension that it refers to violation, plural. And the big get for MLB was to throw Braun out for more than 50 games. So he was treated as a multiple offender, which officially, really, this is a first-time offense. So that was huge for Major League Baseball to get that suspension of more than 50 games.
You get 65 games, and then all of a sudden he comes back in spring training. Don't know if he holds a press conference and looks in the camera and says he's sorry or whatever. What should we expect from Ryan Braun through all of this, since he left it to his teammates and his manager and owner and everybody else to talk on his behalf since he slithered away in the still of the night?
Yeah, that is a great question, and I'm not sure what his strategy is going forward here. But obviously, everyone, I think, especially everybody lied to on his team, I think you would hope that at some point that his level of admission rises to the intensity of the level of his denial. And so far, we've got a statement in which he does not even admit to using PEDs. Yeah. I mean, go back and read that very carefully. Even Major League Baseball did not refer specifically to PEDs. He's a multiple violator of the joint drug program, but there's no confession as to what he actually did. So that tells me that he probably will not address this issue going forward. And if that's the case, man, he really can't move on. I mean, I know he will. He'll be back on the field. There'll be people from Milwaukee who cheer him. But in terms of that reputation and what people think of him, there's no more going forward. I mean, he's in Rafael Palmeiro, Lance Armstrong territory right now because of all the videotape and sound bites we have of the denials and the extent of it. But he can't move forward. This doesn't move him forward from it. It's still attached to him. So I don't know if he intends to address this any further. I obviously would recommend that he does to make life a little bit easier, and he does owe people apologies. But based on that statement, I'm not sure we can expect one.
Yeah, and from what I'm told is he's telling his friends that he did not test positive. And that, he's not admitting, he's not using performance-enhancing drugs in any of these statements. So I'm not sure what exactly he used, but I'm going to guess HGH is at the forefront of all of this. But then it also leads us to Alex Rodriguez. If you're A-Rod and you saw what happened with Ryan Braun, does it change your strategy at all here in the next coming days?
I don't think it changes your strategy here. I mean, this probably is going to take longer. Braun was under the gun a little bit in terms of a timetable because baseball insisted on more than 50 games, and the clock on what was left of this season was beginning to run out, and Braun really didn't want to carry it into next year. I mean, let's face it, this year is a lost year for Milwaukee Brewers. He's not really giving up much in terms of salary or competitiveness this year. Why not start anew next year? The salary goes up, so there's less money at risk this year than next. And he can start anew with a team that could supposedly be competitive again. So he didn't give up that much, whereas Alex, I think, is in a different situation where he's probably looking at a longer suspension to begin with. The negotiations, I think, will take more time and be more delicate. So in some ways, I don't think it will affect Alex all that much, other than I'll say this. In terms of Braun's admission here, whatever it is, but certainly there's an admission of guilt, he has verified the credibility of Tony Bosch to a certain degree. So that is going to affect all of the rest of the players involved in this, because everybody thought, well, they've got nothing on this guy. Tony Bosch, he's just a fly-by-night wannabe pretend doctor from a strip mall in South Florida scribbling in a notebook. Well, we're beginning to hear now the evidence they have on these guys now is much more voluminous and detailed than certainly that characterization.
Can you void these contracts?
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of people who would love to, starting with the New York Yankees. But, You can't. I mean, that'd be a violation of the collective bargaining agreement. I can't see any scenario in which in the next CBA the players agree to something like that. The owners, I'm sure, might be able to or want to go in there and ask for that, but I just don't see that happening.
Talking to Tom Verducci of Sports Illustrated, joining us, Dan Patrick Show. But here, that's what I'm looking for. What's the deterrent here? Cheating pays. Melky Cabrera's back on another list. I mean, this is a guy who lost a World Series opportunity, still got paid by Toronto. Here's A-Rod got $100 million that he'll collect. Braun's got $100 million that he'll collect. If I'm these guys, all right, so my credibility takes a hit. Maybe my ego or conscience takes a hit, but my bank account doesn't. What is the deterrent for these guys to not use?
That's a great question, Dan, because I've asked some people on the ownership side about why they don't push for greater penalties. And they do believe that the stigma attached to even a 50-game suspension should be considered when you think about the severity of discipline. But clearly, to the players, the stigma really isn't that bad. I really don't think that's much of a deterrent, certainly not stopping guys from trying to beat the system. So I do think it needs to be strengthened in terms of taking money and games away from players. And I'm talking about a first offense of being at least 100 games and probably a one-year suspension. And it's good to hear some players in the last 24 hours come out and really be in favor of tightening those penalties. And I do think that stigma doesn't hit with players as much when they think about what's at risk. But I think they would think more about cheating if they knew they were gone for a whole year.
Well, I think it should be 2 strikes. If you get popped, and then the next time I'll be lenient enough to give you 100 games down, and then after that, then you're on your own. But
yeah, and I will say that you can make an argument, Dan, that Brian Braun in this case did get off easy.
Yeah, I believe so.
Because really, baseball treated that 11 drug test as a violation. He should have served 50 games for that. The biogenesis link is a 100-game suspension. So he really should have gotten, on the face of it, 150 games.
Yeah.
And he's getting 65 games. So you can make a case very easily that he got off easily.
Thank you, Tom, as always. I know you got a busy day. Thanks for joining us.
You got it, Dan. Thanks.
All right. Tom Verducci, senior baseball writer at Sports Illustrated. Yeah, I think Ryan Braun got off easy. Your pride takes a hit here. You have to have one of those press conferences. You got to go talk to your teammates. And then all of a sudden, you're gone. And you're on a bad team. So you reappear in spring training, ready to go. But I think if you cheated, you're not worried about your reputation. Because if you cheated, then there's a chance you could get caught. So I don't think Ryan Braun was too concerned about his reputation. Alex Rodriguez, I think, was. Because there's always this politician feel to him. But A-Rod's in deep trouble. Deep from the standpoint of, does he play again? And I said, I didn't think he played again. And I don't believe that injury for a second. But let's see how all this plays out. I think that baseball basically said to him, we don't want you to get back to the Yankee lineup and then suspend you. Ryan Braun has been on the physically unable to perform or whatever that list was with the so-called thumb injury, and then there was a bereavement period as well. So he was already gone. A-Rod's still there, playing for minor league teams, scrapping away, telling us can't wait to get back. Yeah, I don't think he's getting back.